gorgeous people. It's so nice to see everyone. Please remember to hit your mute button for the sake of the video. And I have a fabulous guest here today. I have watched from the outskirts as our next guest, Sean Duregger, always posts these fascinating posts, and he has a talent for making you feel like you've got the inside scoop. So I didn't even know Sean. I was like, "Ooh, wait, has this happened?" And you kind of, it's like those serials, you know, when TV, when you didn't record things, and you would like, stay tuned the next week to find out what happened with Sean and this drama. And I love that. I love that. I found it hugely interesting. So now I've got Sean invited here, and I'm going to get to ask him the ending to all the stories that I've been following eagerly since becoming Facebook friends with him. Let me start with what captivated me about and interested me and first brought Sean to my attention was a post that he had written about the genre he liked doing. And you all know me, and I'm a horror girl. And yes, maybe people will say that my voice would be a great nonfiction serious news presenter voice, and I would die if that was all I could do with my career. I need something that opens with the first 5 minutes someone gets killed. Okay, that's my comfort zone. And Sean posted that he enjoyed, I think at the time the post was about horror, but that wasn't a revenue garnering thing, and that you were working through the process of figuring out where you wanted to be in this industry to, and since then I've noticed a lot of your posts have the same thing. How do I approach narrating as a professional, but on my terms? And I'm fascinated by that. And I want to start from the very beginning. What did you do in your other life? What did 10-year-old Sean want to do? Who were you then?
Well, 10-year-old Sean was a very dramatic kid, always pretending, always playing. It's funny, I literally had one of those little tape recorders and would tape my own radio shows. And I would like get music from the radio, record the song, then I would be the DJ. And I've been working with microphones in one way or another, I feel like, since then. I would take my parents' VHS camera and do like lip syncing videos and, you know, stage up little things. So I've always had a flair for the dramatic anyway. Now I've always, you know, pursued acting in school and things like that. And improv in high school was really fun. I you know, so I've always had my, you know, my toe.
Did your parents encourage you, or did you have the you better be a lawyer or a football player parents?
They did not like the idea of me pursuing the arts, because very blue collar, learn a trade, you know, become a mechanic or become something to do with your hands. Or I was
Can't you join wood shop, Sean?
Wood shop, but you know, and all that stuff, working on cars, like none of that stuff I was ever really good at. I could learn just enough and get it done. So yeah, that wasn't really encouraged. And so I eventually decided to go, well, if I can't be in front of the camera or behind the microphone or in some way artistically, let me see if there's a career for this. So I got a communications degree. I went to, you know, a college in the area and did, you know, television broadcasting and radio broadcasting. So, I mean, this was what I wanted to do for a living, you know, so for the longest time. But the frustration has always been like real life. You know, you get through college, you know, Clear Channel was laying off, you know, tons of radio DJs all across the country. They had bought up a bunch of stations. They were doing a lot of things more remote because you can, you know, I guess you can buy a station, have like one person managing it, one DJ there, and then you have your other DJs or in other markets where they're working, you know, 2, 3.
So by the time you got your chance to break in, the game was changing.
Everyone was because I wanted to do specifically radio broadcasting, get involved in radio, and you know, audio editing and stuff like that. So I got a gig doing some audio editing, and when I was young, and kind of that fell aside through layoffs with the company. And then I just kind of just started figuring out what else to do. So I, long story short, tons of different side jobs and things like that. And
were you
I eventually
worried
found
at this
myself,
point? How old are you at this point? Are you
in my
thinking, what am I going
20s.
to do?
Yeah, because well, especially with the audio production job, that was a huge blow because I'd got, all right, this is my career, this is what I want to do, and I loved it, but I didn't have the work ethic to be, my work ethic and my age really I was low guy in the totem pole, and we learn from our mistakes, right? So I'm like, well, if I would have been more of an asset to the company, maybe I wouldn't have been laid off, things like that.
Yeah.
Go through your mind, of course. So that would kind of
how old were you?
I was probably 23.
Yeah, well, 23. Come on. You're going out partying.
These other priorities at 22 and 23. So anyway, so I found myself with a bunch of different jobs, and I ended up getting married and moving out to Southern California and working for the public utility out here, doing IT work, and I really enjoyed IT work. So now, I've had this job, my public utility job, for probably 15 years now, for 13, 15 years. And this is this is the health insurance, the steady paycheck, all that kind of stuff. But I've always had the passion to, to talk to people, interview people, use my voice in ways. I loved characters. And I'd been doing a podcast. As soon as Apple's like talked about podcasts or mentioned podcast, I was like, I'm in. I'm doing this. So I
because you have like 5 of them, don't you? I've seen on your website. I didn't even know what to put in the promo video because I'm like, surely he doesn't have like 5 podcasts.
Well, I did. I mean, for a while I was doing it, and then I started thinking like, well, what if I put this energy into trying to like do voiceover or trying to do something like that and actually make some money? Because podcasts are, they're not a moneymaker. They're more of putting your stuff out there,
yeah.
Marketing, things like that. Some people can make money on that stuff, but I'm not driven that way to be like a walking billboard,
you have to be a salesperson.
Yeah,
you have to like,
I am.
Yeah, you're either if you're that kind of salesperson, then yeah, you do a podcast, you sell cars or something.
Yeah,
but that's like a personality.
But I was more interested in interviewing people and talking to people, and then
how old are you now?
The bug. I'm 44.
No. Sorry, I didn't mean to give away you're still very gorgeous for 44, but I meant how old are you now at this point in your story?
When I started the podcast, I was probably 30s. I'd been married 5 years.
Okay, so now you're like, right, this is serious.
Okay, it's time to I'm more established now. I have a family. I've learned a lot of lessons. I'm have a better work ethic now. Maybe I could pursue this and just try to dip my toe with the podcasting and just kind of do it because I loved it. Because I love just finding new bands and playing the music. So it was more of an indie band podcast what I started with. And then that kind of grew from there. Found myself in a spiritual crisis of sorts because I was raised conservative Christian, but used my podcasting to kind of sort that out with a friend who I found out who used to be Christian and was an atheist. So I started that podcast. So podcasting was a way for me to connect with people.
I love that.
And then I eventually started a horror podcast to just talk about crazy horror movies, and meet a couple of friends from Twitter. Just found amusing, and then that became kind of the main podcast in horror, and then all kind of organically into the testing of the VO. And that's the thing, like with me right now, I've been doing this 3 years on the side, and that's the thing that I'm trying to navigate is someone who does this on the side, absolutely adores the work, wishes he can do it full time, but I have a really good day job that I don't want to sacrifice yet. So right now is kind of where do I fit in? What do I, how do I choose projects? Am I choosing projects just for the money? Am I choosing projects because they're a fun project? where's the balance? And that's kind of,
your
you
channel,
know,
but it goes to
and
the
that's what I talk about
core.
a lot on social media, is the, trying to
Your
work this through, because I
decisions.
have a long game.
But have you noticed that because what you said about your podcasts and you using your podcast to work through things, it reminds me of the call we had with Candy Kisses, the burlesque star, where she basically said the things that we're ashamed of or that we hide, that they're the things that become problems. That once you bring them out in the open, the shame disappears. And
Mm-hmm.
so you've excavated almost every corner of your personality
Mm-hmm.
in public, which, yes, that
Yeah.
if you're not a strong enough person, that can be very difficult, very hard, and very scary. But on the other hand, I bet you're so much stronger, do you not think, in the areas that you did air everything on a podcast? You've got nothing left. You don't have any hidden secret bits of
Yeah.
shame revolving, whereas a lot of people, when they work through these decisions, it's inside and they don't know
Mm-hmm.
what they think about it. You're kind of just out there, and I
I
like
like
that.
to, yeah, I like to kind of, I'm no stranger to failure. I think, and I've learned that I've made most of my um most of my major life changes, major things that I've been through, the strength that I've got in certain areas, all came from failure. So I'm okay with kind of failing in public, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Now, um, luckily I have a good group. It always is always about who you're surrounding yourself with, right? So luckily I'm surrounded by a bunch of other professionals in this, as I started doing this and I started making friends with certain narrators. And I would have certain narrators like hit me up and say, hey, that thing you said, that was a little too much, or, dial it back. And it was always like, dial back the negativity, dial back but like I said, I've always been someone who really I've always worn my heart on my sleeve. And that just kind of translates into social media. But yeah, because I spent a good, 5-6 years, especially with it was called The Armchair Philosopher. That was my philosophy and religion podcast. With that one, just kind of getting used to just airing, my frustrations and things, and just working things out kind of in public. Like I'm fine with that. And I'm fine with kind of blowback, and I'm fine with engaging in conversation. As long as we can converse and learn something, then I'm fine. If it becomes one-sided, that's definitely a problem. And
But
there's
you've
times where I've
changed,
censored myself.
but you've just changed my mind about something and made me realize something. Because when somebody's telling you, because I always get the feeling I have to watch what I've said. And I get that we have to be aware. You don't want to hurt people's feelings or be
Yeah.
mean, basically. But we learned that in second grade. And I would hope that we kind of live our lives that way. But being another person that tends to err on the side of too authentic, I at times have gone back and thought, oh, I should have censored this, I should have censored that. But at the times that you were negative, and your friend saying dial back the negative, they're probably meaning be careful what you say.
Exactly.
Whereas
So
it's
yeah,
teaching you to maybe change as a person and not feel as negative. You become a better
exactly.
person and show up still as a
Yeah.
different version.
So an example of that was when I first started getting reviews for audiobook narration. I see every new narrator do this. This person hated my book, and I got 1 star, and they didn't understand. Da, 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 and you want to just go and change their mind, and that wasn't you. You're wrong. And so it's all
And then
that
tell
stuff.
your 600 friends on Facebook all about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like, so, and that was definitely a scenario. And Joe Hempel actually was the one who hit me up. He goes, hey, man, so, love ya.
But
But,
stop.
you don't have to focus on this. You don't have to like air it out. It's fine. We all get them. He's like, look through my audiobooks, and so I started doing that. I started looking through narrators that I love. And I started looking through like their reviews, and you find for every amazing narrator, for every 5-star review, you see a good old 1 star, a good old like, this person makes my ears want to bleed, like, and you're like, what, um, so it's just, I look at all that kind of like as just, just baby steps to learning, you know, and I'm fine kind of changing, you know, learning and growing and moving forward. But
Because when we
yeah,
learn in public, we're teaching other people as well.
and that's the thing, you know, too, because I have so many people ask, even though I've only been doing this a few years, every week or so, I always have somebody asking, you know, questions about it or wanting to learn. And so, you know, I was like, well, for this type of stuff, since it's the one, it's like my side thing, and everyone knows me like that. I just work for, you know, this company and I got kids. I wanted to use the social media to kind of as a way to let people know about what I do, but also the work that it entails. Because and you're only going to get like a small sliver of everything that goes into audiobook narration anyway. I mean, there's
Yeah.
no way,
But
you
I
know.
love
But
that
I
Joe
mean,
Hempel didn't come to you and say, don't be negative, it'll look bad on social media. He came to you and said, don't worry about the reviews, who cares?
yeah,
And that's cool.
yeah,
That's the kind of feedback a good friend gives you.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, I was lucky enough to really kind of hit it off with a handful of narrators who kind of brought me into their fold, even as someone who's new and inexperienced, and you know, but I think part of that was just, you know, being someone who's able to learn and grow with advice, and always ask advice. So I don't know, I've been fortunate, you know, to have
Yeah.
a good group of people I can bounce things off with, you know.
Okay, so back to the question about your favorite genres and loving a genre, whether it's the big money maker or not, and how do you make those decisions?
Well, I mean, I adore horror. I mean, there's many reasons why. I mean, um, I mean, it's one of those things that was like the forbidden fruit when I was a kid in a very, very Christian household. Um, you know, and it's one of those things where you start testing the waters as you get older. And I wasn't allowed to watch a lot of horror, but there was some like horror adjacent that I was able to watch, like the movie Alien. It's horror, but it's sci-fi, so that was okay. Aliens, yeah, it's horror, but it's sci-fi action. That's okay. And
Oh, that
um,
explains, because you've got the sci-fi side of you too.
yeah, so I kind of I was kind of a late bloomer into horror as far as like, 'cause I have friends who were like, when I was 5 years old, I was watching the Halloween movies. I didn't watch the first Nightmare on Elm Street until I was in high school, and I was a junior. And but from then on, I kind of started, as I found my freedom, right, moving away from home, getting out on my own, I started, you know, trying to watch all the stuff that I wasn't allowed to watch, and really started really falling in love with the horror genre in particular, because I love how, and a lot of these kind of subgenre type, all these genres kind of do the same thing, where you can take, you know, social commentary and put it into a horror movie, and you not only have a great horror movie like, you know, Not a Living Dead, you know, Romero's classic, but it's also a commentary on the society at the time. And the same thing with Dawn of the Dead. It's a you know,
Yeah,
commentary
those
on kind of
I,
capitalism.
they
You
freak
know?
me out. I've got to say, I used to have an ex that would like pretend the car was broken on country roads after we'd watched like Friday the 13th, and just like he thought it was hysterically funny to scare me. So I'm not a fan of the stalker. I'm more Harlan Coben, so maybe I'm like, what is the soft porn equivalent of horror? Like Harlan Coben, Linwood
Oh,
Barkley. I can't get sued for saying that, can I? But you
well,
know what I
yeah,
mean.
there's definitely there's different levels. I mean, even
Yeah.
right now, there's like the splatter punk, which is the more extreme horror. Then there's, you know, more like kind of ghost stories, haunted house type things,
Ghost and haunted,
monster
love them.
movies, monsters.
Psychological. But I
Yeah,
like I like and it's always the male protagonist. It's always men. And that's got to change. The Harlan Coben, Linwood Barkley, the guy lives in the suburbs, turns on his Mr. Coffee in the morning, and then everything goes to hell. Like, you know, that's my favorite kind of,
yeah.
but you're really like into the good
And it varies.
stuff.
So I don't like the extreme horror stuff.
Okay.
But I kind of learned that early on. So I started learning like my, um, I like I like ghost stories. I loved like Nightmare on Elm Street was kind of like the best of both worlds because I loved special effects. I love fantasy, and it was like a blend of like horror fantasy with the
Yeah.
nightmares. So, and the special effects and all the great makeup effects and stuff like that. So, all that sort of started the downward spiral into horror, and then I discovered heavy metal, and so it's like it's all the stuff that I was forbidden to listen to or watch, like fell
What
into
about true
me.
crime? Do you like true crime?
Some of it, I'm not, not too much, which is weird that that's one genre that I'm like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Um,
So sci-fi. So what kind of sci-fi are you talking? Are you one of those
uh,
Star Trek, Star Wars
uh,
people?
oh yeah, yeah, I'm one of those people. I love both.
Yeah.
I was a, I was a huge Star Wars, kid. So everything was Star Wars all the time. That was
What about
the one
Logan's
movie I
Run?
watched.
Do you remember Logan's Run?
Yes, I watched that later on more in college because I
Do you
started
like
kind
it?
of discovering. Um, it was funny when you watch a movie like that after the effects have kind of gone, they've aged out. The
Yeah.
effects are
Yeah.
just, so it's so. But that said, so the effects are hokey. Um, I love the story of Logan's Run, and I
Yeah.
love that whole setup. Uh, and there's a horror, there's horror in that too, in that whole setup too. But yeah, I love old science fiction as well, almost more than new. Well, it's a blend. It's like asking someone like their favorite movie or whatever. It's hard for me to answer. But
But Rebecca said horror and heavy metal. Sean is speaking my language. And but I don't, it made me realize, what did you mean you said heavy metal? You mean like the music?
the music, yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Okay. So what was that one that Yul Brynner was in with the amusement park? That was the scariest moment of my entire
Is that
childhood.
is that Funhouse?
No, he was in an,
Funhouse?
they're all robots in the amusement park. They did a
Westworld, right?
remake later on,
Westworld, Westworld.
Westworld, and his face melts off. That was the scariest moment of my childhood. That and the Twilight Zone where the little girl falls into the wall in the third dimension. So yeah, I'm soft, aren't I? I thought I was this like really hip, cool horror girl, but obviously not.
See, that's what I love about horror, and specifically why I guess the genre, and that's why I'm like, how can I make some money with this? Because I love the range of horror, and it really is a genre that can be for everyone. A lot of people hear horror and they kind of go like, oh, that's like, you like a bunch of blood and guts. It's like, well, no, there's so many different levels. I
Yeah,
got, there's stuff like, Goosebumps for the kids. There was the Fear Street books, you know um there's so many different levels of it. It really should, it's like, it's a big genre. There's a lot of people doing it, but for some reason, and that's what the musing was on social media was, how are the movies for the most part do well,
yeah. So why do you think
but
that
why,
is?
what's the deal with books? You're limited to, Stephen King always sells, Dean Koontz always sells, but there's so many amazing
Yeah.
horror authors out there right now. It's like, what's going on? Why aren't they launching, into a platform? Is it just because movies aren't based on their stuff? But
See,
that's
I knew
yeah,
that audiobooks didn't sell that well, but I thought the actual books sold. But that's
books
because
sell.
I'm a fan and those are the
Well, I think the
books that
books
I
sell.
buy.
Yeah, and I do all this brainstorming. I'm like, is it the horror fan? Like, horror fans like physical media. So most of them are, they're buying, $20, $30, Blu-rays of some movie that 10 people saw back in 1983. They're buying the books, but
Oh yeah.
also Kindle sales are up. But what is it about the audiobook? So this is the stuff I think out loud, but I don't have an answer to. So I was just trying to,
Yeah.
like, for me, like, where should I go? What am I doing? Am I doing this just to make money? But then I see, some narrators who move full time, they're getting paid and doing a lot of a lot of audiobooks, but do they love them all? Are they having fun with them? Is it just work then? So for me, with the position I'm in, I'm like, I don't want the narration to be just work, because I
Right.
have that day job.
I think
I'm
that's
trying to find the balance of
fundamental.
what's fun,
Fundamental.
yeah,
Who do
what's
you
fun,
want to
but what's not a
be?
waste of my time.
Yeah, and also who do you want to be? The whole point of doing this is pursuing a dream, isn't it?
Mhm.
Because if you were just in this for the money, you could do, but I also think that the deep level, don't you think that if you're pursuing something for the pure love and you're sticking to the genre that you love, I mean,
Uh-huh.
as long as your voice, I mean, if my favorite genre was Christian YA, I probably wouldn't succeed, let's be honest. I don't sound like I'm 10 and but as long as you're reasonably suited to it, then I think that the true love of it and passion over time
Mhm.
will net you satisfaction and success. Maybe not the way you thought success would be, right?
Yeah.
Like it might not look like other people's success that jump in and do such and such genre, but can you imagine, 6 years down the line and you're the guy that's getting booked for all the jobs in your genre
Yeah.
because people know how much you love it and how good you are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's what I had to do, is kind of do a kind of a reset, especially after 2020, all the challenges from 2020, all the things that kind of came with that. I tried taking a job just for the money, and that blew up in my face. And all that's finally been settled, but that kind of blew up my face. So I kind of really had to do a lot of thinking, like, what am I pursuing this for?
Yeah.
I mean, so I had to really scale things back a lot and really try to look at, balancing everything, because I mean, why do I do this? Well, I love telling stories. I've always been a storyteller in some way, and I love the art of narrating a story. There's nothing I've done has been been like it at all. And that's why I kind of settled on this as opposed to just strict voiceover, because, voiceover is a
Mm.
hustle, and doing it part-time is too much of a hustle to do something part-time as far as straight voiceover work goes. So, but the long form narration was something that I can really enjoy this and do this, um, because I do love it. But then, you know, trying to balance the act of getting it done and deadlines and things like that too are also
But
important. So
but
it's just
I challenge you that if you're the guy that started not one but 5 podcasts, and one of them centered around your religion that your whole family, and you're putting this out in public that you grew up with, and challenging it. Your religion
mm,
goes to the core of who people are when they're raised, their family memories and everything, and you're challenging that, trying to find the truth in who you are and what you want. So then what would be the point of, while you have your full-time job, taking a second job, working really hard, I'm assuming with extra hours that you don't have,
yeah,
to then waste it narrating things you don't like?
yeah, that you're right. And that's exactly right. That's what I
Yeah,
don't want to do. And that was the
yeah,
lesson that I kind of learned.
yeah,
So, for me, and that's the thing I think I had to realize and really just come to terms with, like, this path, this journey that I'm on with the narration, it's my journey, you know. It's not another narrator's journey, it's not someone else's journey. Everyone's kind of on their own path with this stuff. And I think that's why I love talking to narrators so much, is because
yeah.
we're all in these different paths. We're all pursuing the same thing, but man, we're our routes, to get to
We
our,
find what we'll stand for. I
to get to the
remember in the
final
beginning,
destination.
everyone's like, you make money from erotica. And yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm open-minded. But then you're probably not in the right genre when your thought most of the time is, oh my God, really again? It's like, do you guys never have any interesting conversations? What? Probably
Yeah, I,
shouldn't
I
be
realized pretty
narrating
quickly
that.
that, yeah, I realized that erotica wasn't for me, pretty quickly. But but like you've said, I've found kind of my voice with what I want to pursue.
Yeah.
So my whole reset was, you know what, I'm gonna just keep pursuing this. I'm gonna raise some standards up as far as, contracts and pay and things like that. I'm not gonna do something just for the cash if it's not well written, if it's not something that I would enjoy doing. Even if I'm being offered money, I'm decided I'm not going to take those jobs. I want something that I enjoy narrating, something that has a decent deadline, and then something that will pay.
How
And I got
successful have you been at that with the
I
boundaries?
mean,
Was it easy?
I've been doing mainly royalty share and royalty share plus, and I've done a few per finished hour books that were I did a job with one of my first jobs with Findaway was fantastic. I did these kids books, these Peter Powers kids books, and that was a blast. And that was for those books and that job, like that was a really good experience. It paid really well, and I got it done, got it turned in, and everything was great.
I'm a big Findaway fan, so
yeah.
yeah.
So I mean, so that was good, and then I've done a couple smaller kind of things. I did an anthology with Fireside Horror, Joe Hupple's horror company. For Glenn Rolfe was the author. That was awesome because I was on. You get your name listed with like Matt Godfrey and Travis Baldry and
Very
Joe
cool.
Huppel, and and then I did a small little thing for Pink Flamingos, and then.
But your name is a big name, Sean, by the way. I'm fascinated when guests come on this show because I'm assuming that everyone knows that like we all know who you are and like you're Sean. And every single guest that I've assumed that about, except for a few, are surprised. It's like none of us think of ourselves as the people everyone.
Yeah, it's the classic artist, self-deprecating, like, but it's fun. I mean, but the thing is, like, I will say though, I mean, I'm glad that some people, who follow things know who I am. That's great. I mean, it's shows that I'm doing something right, but I think, so most of my stuff's been royalty share, but I've really aligned myself with a few authors, and then a company called a Psych Apocalypse, and what they've started to do is they're bringing back the movie novelization. They've republished some. They've gotten the rights. I've helped them find this fantasy quadrology, 4 books called Silver Glass that Avon Shore narrated, and so they've become a really cool company to work with because I've helped on the back end finding rights to certain books. I've done detective work for them. I've narrated 2 books for them, but then my slate's filling up with mostly stuff from them because it's all the stuff that's right down my alley. So I did the Wishmaster novelization. It's a movie from the 90s produced by Wes Craven, and they wrote a brand new novelization from the script. So
your authenticity and following what you love is paying off in spades.
Yeah, well, I mean, the projects that are coming my way now it's like they're
projects you love,
chosen just for me. I mean, this summer I'll be working on a novelization of a film called Titan Find. The original title was Creature, and it's it's one of those that you saw in the horror section of VHS. It was an alien ripoff type cover. It's called Creature. So they're one of their main authors. His name is Christian Francis, and he wrote the brand new novelization for Titan Find based off the original script and original title of Titan Find. So there's stuff like that is starting to come my way, and
you told the universe what
great.
You wanted. You did what they said with branding, and I never realized that when they say brand and be as specific as possible about your brand. I thought that meant so that you created, so people knew who you were. But what that means, and you've just done it, is to be so specific about your brand that everything you love comes to you. You're attracting it
Yeah.
because you know exactly what you want. And you just said all the things coming to you are like custom designed for you because you've
Yeah.
created an undeniable brand.
Yeah. I mean, and I've been in a pretty, and that's the thing about my journey is I'm in a pretty good spot where I don't, and not everyone's is able to be as choosy as me. And, everyone's journey is different. Some, but I think the important aspect is even if you're doing just, what you would consider as a narrator or whatever, or VO work, like just grunt work, just getting it done, to make ends meet, to provide for your family. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not saying there's
Yeah.
anything wrong with that, but what I'm saying is, and what I've been doing, even with the day job and juggling all this, is I'm trying to find, like put my voice out there in the world
Yeah.
and really nurture that voice and those interests that pertain to me and kind of build that as far as like my brand as the narration goes. I really have been pretty past couple of years, especially, and I'm getting ready to do like my first like headshot, which is crazy to think about. But like being very specific on things on how I want to present my narration,
I
myself as a
love
narrator.
this. I love this more than any call I've had out of 90, 100 calls. You've taught me something amazing. Listen, this is amazing because especially what you just said, look, yes, we all do other jobs. Yes, we have to pay the mortgage. Yes, we'll take on books. Of course, we'll take on books.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll do nonfiction girl here, it's, we'll do all that. But you just keep as the most important thing. This is what you did. You didn't even realize you were doing it, did you? This is what you do is you keep working on, this is what I love. I'm going to do as much of what I love as I can. How can I get more of what I love? This is what I love. I love this, and this. These are all my favorite things. Do you want help finding it? And that's front and center. This is what I love. That's your brand right there. And you're not even doing it in a fake outside in way. This is what I love. And eventually you'll be so good at what you love and everyone will know what you love that eventually for all of us, no matter who you are, the other stuff will fall aside because you've held on to what you've loved really tightly forever. I love this. This is the best thing anyone's taught me on any call. I will owe you forever, Sean.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's what I'm going to do.
I think everyone, like we all, and this is something I even learned from like kind of the private sector, just working in my day job. And when we were able to go in the office, is that every coworker that I sat, in a cubicle with or nearby, they all have personal lives and personal interests, but we all, we keep that all kind of vanilla when we're at the office or whatever. And I started realizing like, Joe from, cubicle 294A, is actually like, he loves like ice skating or hockey. He's actually really good. I started finding out like these people that I just see every day actually had like these really cool talents that they did on the side. And, so I don't know why we feel like we have to kind of hide ourselves or hide our interests, from, say like, well, I do get it, I guess, from the day-to-day kind of voiceover branding, like you're a voice for all, you want to be a voice, there's, I got my logo with the microphone and I'm a voiceover person,
It'd be a better world,
mean,
though, if every single person had to wear a big badge with the one thing they love the most on the top of their forehead.
Well, because I think that's because that, you're not just a number anymore. You're not just some, you're not Joe from cubicle, whatever. You're not, I'm not Sean, a narrator. I'm not, so what I wanted to do specifically for the narration is kind of like put my stamp on, this is what I want to do. This is how the look is. My logo is not your typical voiceover or narrator logo. It's, you see the logo, you know exactly what you're gonna get with me. So that was kind of the chance that I took on that, because I kind of, but like I said, it was all because I have the established day job. I could actually take a chance and play around with this whole thing, and that's kind of what I've been doing. I'm taking it seriously. I love it. I am a professional narrator, but I'm able to kind of play, I guess, a little more.
I don't know. I have to disagree with you because I didn't have the established day job and my redundancy ran out really quickly.
Uh-huh.
And I did books. Of course, I worked 24/7 on anything
Uh-huh.
that, that wasn't going to do a disservice to my career, right?
Yeah.
But I still kept my eye on what I wanted
There you
and
go. Yeah.
focused. No matter what position you're in, of course you have to do what you have to do to make a living. So that's not, I mean, some would argue that you don't have a luxury by having the day job, that you have a harder road to, because I tried getting survival jobs in the beginning when I didn't have money.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it so difficult to
Yeah.
focus and do the marketing and get the audiobooks and still go out and live in the world like one of those people, right? I found it almost impossible. So
Yeah.
I think you have a rougher road, but you've kept your focus.
Yeah.
I think that what it comes down to isn't the luck you have because you have an income, but the work you put in ahead of time without knowing it on the podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
deciding who
Well,
you are and announcing
yeah.
it and
Yeah.
all
Everything is a
that.
building. Everything is a building
Yeah,
block, and I think that's it's easy to lose track of that because we're trying so
yeah,
hard to get, to get where we want or do we want to do. But everything is a building block, and sometimes, you'll find your way in the most, random place and actually be like, oh, I guess, I am doing this. And that's the thing. Like, I look at this now and I look at the body of work that I've done already with the audiobooks, and, I'm like, oh, wow, I've done X many of audiobooks these past 3 years. That's crazy. People have actually listened, and people actually come back for more, so, um,
but that brings
I,
me to another question. Am I wrong? Did I read your posts wrong? That you got yourself in shape? Like you went on a
yes.
get fit after having been. Okay, so how did you do that? I'm asking for a
I just added
friend,
another I just
obviously.
added
I'm not.
another thing to my plate. I just added another thing to my plate that I didn't already have time for everything else,
But you did
but
it.
I
You
mean,
like really out there doing it.
yeah, I had to, because like I said, like 2020 was like probably a lot of us, like, one of the craziest years so far in our lives, for me, like, family of five, you know, unknown pandemic. I got kids, and school's closing down, everyone's home. So that year was hard because my normal schedule and juggling everything with the audiobooks and stuff, because I could juggle the day job and kind of compartmentalize the different things that I was doing. Well, suddenly we're all home all the time, and I'm
Hmm.
working from home the day job, and then I'm gonna try to go in and do some narrating. But then I got the kids, blasting something over here or banging something here because they're all home. So it really took a toll on kind of like my mental health, and
Yeah.
a lot of people, my wife's mental health, the kids' mental health. It was like it just got to the point of like survival mode. Let's get through this year. Let's get through this thing. And I gained like 30 pounds in a year. Because before I had been going to the gym and everything, and for a few years, like I would say about 7 years ago, I'd kind of had gotten back in shape after, you know, so many years of not doing anything.
But how do
So
you do the mental shift? I'm having a really hard time. I've been like sitting
well,
on the couch in shock for 2 years. So
yeah,
how do you change that?
it's well, you got to start small. You got to start.
Mm.
So what I had to do was I basically had to start compartmentalizing like the things that I do, and putting boundaries up, and really like saying, so the first thing was like, you know, I work 8 hours at my desk for the day job. Um,
Seriously? So it's a
Crazy.
full-time
9
job.
hours, full-time job. So I was like, okay, so what can I do? So I said, okay, so from the 2 hours before going out to my desk, that's narration time. So I trained myself to get up early and start doing that, getting into kind of a schedule. and going to bed earlier, getting to that schedule. So that's the first thing, to try to establish some sort of like a daily routine.
How long did
with
that take you to establish that?
Probably a good month, I would say, or more. And then I was like, okay, well, now I kind of got that going. I did that for, I guess, a few weeks. And then it's like, okay, I got to get some sort of workout plan in place. And I always have trouble kind of cranking the engine with that stuff. So I just randomly signed up for a marathon. So I knew that I had a year to prepare for a marathon. So I was like, well, that's a lofty goal. So I got that, and I paid my money. So there's that. And then I just started, every other day running a mile, coming back, walking, run, walk. And I started just every day adding some sort of, activity. I mean, it really literally started with just walks.
Okay.
Go out for a 30-minute walk, come back. Then after a few weeks, then I'd added some running. And then after a couple of weeks, then my son, he kind of helped me too, because he's 14, he wanted to start lifting weights, and the gyms that started opening back up. And so I was like, all right, well, we'll go to the gym. So I found a program for him. But
That's
all that
actually a
said,
really good example for your kids, isn't it?
yeah,
Watching their dad work through achieving his goals. I
yeah.
think that's really cool.
So it really is. It's adding little things in. Because a lot of people
One
be like,
habit at a time.
yeah, they're like, I'm gonna go work out, and then they work out for a week, and then like they can't move. I mean, I did
Well,
that when I first
yeah.
tried starting running 7-8 years ago. I was like, I'm gonna run, and I got my shoes on, and I went out and I ran around the lake and back, ran like 3-mile loop. I hadn't run in like years, and like after that, I could not sit down for a week. Like so I was like, okay,
Yeah,
that was the
see,
wrong thing to do.
I tried that and I did really well for 3 days. I even went on Facebook Live and said, my whole thing was, I'm going to wake up early. So WWFS, wake up early, walk really, really hard and get fit, fast, like 16 hours a day, and sleep. I didn't think, oh, maybe just start to learn to wake up early first. And I did great.
Yeah.
And then our boiler broke. And we sat here with freezing temperature and no hot water. And I like, all that went out the window. And
Yeah.
I'm like, how fast can I get online crisps and chips? The trauma.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe just one habit at a time.
It's one incremental thing. So I'm kind of doing this with my wife right now, because she's training for half marathon, but she hasn't run. So it's literally like, she's like, well, I can run more than a mile. I'm like, no, for this
That's
week,
what I do.
every other day you're running a mile, and you're running slow, like just jog it. Don't, because it's just, you got to
It's hard when you don't have that
things in.
Recording for the first time today ever, I did that because I really want to get on a steady, consistent recording schedule, because I have a bad habit of doing everything I possibly can until I'm going to drop dead, getting ahead of deadline, and then collapsing.
Yeah.
So so today I was like, oh, I could do another good 45 minutes. It was like, no, stop. And is your wife finding that hard? That is just as hard. Stopping when you think you can keep going.
Exactly, because I mean, we all do this. That's a great example with the narration, because I had to learn for me, because everything I was going through, realistically, how much can I record during a day with everything else I'm doing?
Yeah.
I was trying to fit in way too much, so I had to learn. So I took a break for a bit from narrating. I took the whole month of December 2020 off, much to the chagrin of an author who that was
You
the start of
need
my
what you
problems with
need.
that scenario. But so I took that month off to just clear my head, to just play video games, watch movies, spend time with the kids, just do things I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then in January, that's when I started, okay, I'm going to get up, early, started with that. And then I don't think I started running until probably February. And then I started going to the gym in like April. So
I love
was
that.
kind of slowly.
I love that. I'm going to do the go to sleep thing. And because I go out on a walk and suddenly I'm, those military tapes where they do those marching chants. 1,
Yeah.
2, 3, kill them, kill them, kill them. And I'm walking like I'm going to kill someone like 1,000,000 miles an hour. I haven't moved off my couch in 2.5 years. Who do I think I am? Right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to do it a la Sean Duregger. I'm going to do
There
one
you go.
habit
One thing.
tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like
So
that.
now
So when's your wife's half marathon?
it's I'll be running the full, she'll be running the half. That's in June 5th
Oh, well, that's
in San
good.
Diego.
I think, and that's very romantic that you guys are training together. I think that's lovely. Your kids are very lucky.
They're
Yeah.
pretty lucky kids. They're lucky kids. No, they're fantastic kids.
No, they are, to grow up
we
with that
really
as an
are.
example. And I bet you let them watch horror movies, don't you?
Oh yeah. My daughter's she's a horror movie junkie. My son, not so much. My young 2 sons, not so much. But my daughter is like into it. So,
Yeah,
you know,
a mini Sean.
yeah. So we'll see where it goes. But you know, I mean, so trying to think like what else happened with trying to bring this back into the narration.
Well, actually,
because
I'll tell you the one thing I need desperately. This is the question I ask everyone at the end of the
Okay.
call. You know, in school, when they dig the hole and they put the time lock box in, and like everyone gets to put in something that they're going to dig up like 60 years later. What would you put in that box? Words of wisdom, a joke? What do you want to leave with the YouTube audience that's going to watch this show in 60 years?
60 years. By
Yeah.
then they'll have like implants and everyone's heads. They don't even listen. I mean, I posted about this about this today on Facebook. And that is, you know, exactly what we've been talking about with the fitness thing. Don't bite off more than you can chew, because we are gung-ho, and especially me, you know, starting into this whole thing, this whole journey. I was like, you know, couldn't get enough of finding audiobooks, finding publishers, talking to people, and I said yes to way too many projects, especially for someone just starting out. And then what happened was, you know, that all started snowballing, and I got better projects, you know, better books, because I was getting better, but I still had like 5 audiobooks that I had to do. They were just
still
crap.
do that.
They weren't going to sell. Like, why did I accept those? But at the time, it was all I had, and I accepted. So my thing, the next thing that I'm trying to do is for this year. So every year I've been kind of trying to, you know, refocus and get better. This year, it's not biting off more than I can chew. So I can only do, you know, X amount of books per year or per finished hours. I should probably calculate that. But and once that's full, I'm not accepting any more jobs this year, you know. And so that's what I'm learning how to do. So yeah, don't bite off more than you can chew, because there's always going to be more books. There's always going to be a new book. There's always
And
going to
it's
be a
good
better book.
energetically putting that out to the world as well. There's always going to be another great one. There's plenty. I'm going to do it, you know, in it. I've got a question for you. Rebecca would like to know, what horror book would Sean most love to narrate? You've got a horror fan here. Rebecca loves her horror, so you got to impress her.
I mean, if it was like if I had my choice of any, I mean, Pet Sematary by Stephen King would be, you know, that would be an amazing book to narrate. That was one of the first horror books that I read, actually. That's the one that's really stuck with me all this time. But yeah, I mean, that one would be incredible. I mean, so
have you read The Magic Cottage by James Herbert?
I have not.
Oh, you should.
Probably should.
You would sound really, and you would sound amazing narrating that one. I think somebody's already done it, but it's one of my favorites. Kim wants to know, Jason or Michael?
Jason, for sure. Jason. He has more flair. He's more interesting. His costume updates with every movie.
I love
Michael's
that.
the same.
I
Michael gets older, but his mask is almost the same all the time. It's just, you know.
Would you ever direct a movie or be in a horror movie?
I mean, I would totally be in a horror movie for sure if that ever came up. Directing, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I'm dipping my toe in the creative stuff. I'm actually writing my first novel this year is on another thing I added. See, I always have these things. But I'm
But I
writing my
love
first
that
novel,
because
so,
you could do
so we'll
that
see.
incrementally. What kind of
Yeah.
novel? I mean, no spoilers, but is it horror?
It's a horror. Yeah. Spoiler, it's a horror, but it's a young adult horror novel about the two brothers. It takes place in Iowa, and I use a lot of me and my brother and our exploits as kids in Iowa on a
Oh, I
farm
love that. And you and your
into
brother
the story.
close.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So then so we'll see. I've developed the story. I've told the story to the kids. I have, the characters. I've started the outline. First draft's due in December of this year. So
Very good.
Take your time. Set things out.
And and you've got a narrator for it already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I'll hire Matt Garfey to do it, maybe.
I mean, I figure writers narrate their own stuff all the time.
Yeah. No,
So maybe it's time narrators write their own stuff.
Yeah, well, Travis Baldry wrote a book.
Yeah.
Who'd have thunk it?
A lot of them are doing it, and they're doing very, very well at it as well.
Well, I mean, that's the kind of the cool thing. And it's funny because I operate this way anyway, but even with my IT work that I did, I, will, reverse engineer it, right? So as a narrator, we're kind of reverse engineering these books, and we're reverse engineering what good writing is. We know when we're narrating a well-written book. Yeah. And then we also know when we're narrating an awful book. And
how to edit and how punctuation and what's wrong and what's right.
Yeah.
Please don't mix up your tenses in one paragraph, past and present.
Yeah. So I mean, so it makes sense. I mean, like I said, I did the same thing with IT. Is like I learn a program, and then once I learn it, I can, I'll kind of dive in and tell you all about it, and help you with it. But so I guess that I've always worked that way anyway. So
are you currently doing a podcast then?
I am not. My Audiobooks from Hell was my newest podcast. But that went on hold in 2020 when things started I was just over my head, trying to kind of get back to me, find myself again. And so we'll see. I would like to do it again because there's already some great interviews on there already. And it's a fun little niche podcast about horror audiobooks.
Well, Sean, I can't thank you enough for joining us, because I've got to tell you, I mean, personally, I've had like 3 epiphanies in 1 hour. I'm like so ready to fix my entire life. So
baby steps.
Baby steps. I think that's the biggest epiphany for me.
One of my favorite movies.
Yes, definitely. Okay. This has been fabulous. Thank you so much. Video will be out in 2 weeks, and thanks for taking the time to join us. I'm so pleased we got the chance to do this. And someday when I get my first big platform horror book, I'll be like messaging Sean going, squee.
Yes, I want to hear about it. Yes.
And I can't wait to see what you're up to. I can't wait to see what you produce and narrate in the coming few years, because you're headed places.
Thank you.
Seriously.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful night. Thanks for joining. To the studio audience. And bye. Bye, Sean. And good luck on the marathon. Good luck to your wife as well. Bye.
Thank you. Follow me on social media, and I'll post when I'm running. You'll be able to see as I go, I guess.
Yes, and you guys follow Sean on social media anyway. He is a riot. Funnest social media account. Take care, guys. Bye. Bye, Sean.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.